Hey there, sleepyheads. Welcome back to Boring History for Sleep, where we gently drift through the annals of time exploring the overlooked corners of human experience. Tonight, we're not just learning history, you're stepping directly into it, into a world shaped by immense pressures and primal realities. If this quiet exploration of the past resonates with you, a gentle subscribe and a soft tap on the like button truly help these historical whispers reach more minds seeking tranquility. And as you settle in, perhaps share a quiet hello in the comments below, letting us know where you're drifting from tonight. Allow your mind to softly drift as we journey back to 1941 to the unforgiving stage of Soviet Russia, a land poised on the brink of an unfathomable conflict. You're a young man barely out of your teens, perhaps even younger than you feel you should be. You've known the rhythms of the earth, the demands of the harvest, the simple, cyclical life of your village. You've hauled beets, felt the pull of the collective farm, and understood your place within its ordered chaos. But that order, that quiet existence, is about to be shattered. The summons arrives not with a formal flourish, but a man on a motorbike, a stranger whose face is blurred by the dust of the road and the urgency of his mission. His message is impersonal, curt, delivering a paper with no return address, just a clear, unwavering directive report. Now, your individual identity, your dreams, your name, they are already dissolving, replaced by a singular, immutable roll soldier of the workers' and peasants' Red Army. There is no negotiation, no appeal, merely a fixed destiny that unfurls before you like a grim map. The journey begins not with grand fanfare, but with the quiet, uncomfortable reality of your new status. It starts by foot, the familiar dirt paths feeling alien under your boots, then a rough wagon ride the wooden planks jarring against your bones. Finally, there's the bus overcrowded, stifling a communal box on wheels that smells distinctly of boiled cabbage and regret. You recognize the familiar sense of rural life, but here, mixed with the unfamiliar, they become a grim premonition. Your fellow travellers, equally bewildered and silent, share a collective anxiety that hangs thick in the air, a silent acknowledgement of the unknown fate awaiting you. It's a transit designed to strip away your civilian self, hour by hour, kilometre by kilometre. When you finally arrive, it's not to a welcoming barracks, but a drafty, echoing space. Your first night as a conscript is spent on the cold, unforgiving floor, the air thick with the constant symphony of coughing. The nervous coughs, the resigned coughs, the coughs of men already weakened before their fight has even begun. Whispered anxieties, barely audible above the rustling of straw and the creak of old wood, become the only lullaby. You hear bits and pieces, a mother's cry, a sister's trembling prayer, echoes of the lives left behind already fading into the sharp-edged reality of your new existence, a reality you're now forced to embrace. Your first taste of the Red Army's practical approach to outfitting its vast numbers comes swiftly, and it's not exactly a visit to a bespoke tailor. The process is quick, almost brutal in its efficiency. You're herded into a large, dimly lit room, the air heavy with the scent of damp wool and an indefinable mustiness. Someone barks orders and you're handed a pile of clothes, not measured, not fitted, just handed. These are not crisp new uniforms, but garments already imprinted with the stories and struggles of previous wearers. The tunic, when you pull it on, is 2 sizes too big, the heavy material hanging loosely on your frame, the sleeves drooping past your hands. It feels less like a protective garment and more like a shroud, a constant reminder of the anonymous mass you now belong to. You find yourself adjusting it constantly, pulling at the rough fabric, trying to find some semblance of comfort. It's a futile exercise. True comfort seemed to be an omitted feature on the uniform's design brief. The trousers are a different kind of mismatch, perhaps a size too small or too short, perpetually riding up, leaving your ankles exposed to the biting chill that seems to find its way into every crevice. You'd think an army of this scale would have a warehouse of freshly milled cloth, but you learn quickly that resources like individual comfort are luxuries. And then there are the boots. They squeak a high-pitched, insistent sound like frightened mice trapped beneath your feet. They are stiff, unyielding, and clearly belong to someone else, someone whose foot shape was entirely different from yours. You flex your toes, try to break them in even just by standing, but they offer little give. The inner seams rub, and you can already feel the raw spots forming on your heels, a grim premonition of the blisters that will soon become your constant companions. The pervasive mildew smell that clings to every thread confirms their long, damp history, a silent testament to the battles and marches they've already endured. You wonder briefly about the previous wearer. Did they make it? Or are you quite literally stepping into their fate along with their garments, becoming part of a grim lineage? This ill-fitting, slightly too used uniform becomes your second skin, an external layer reflecting the internal discomfort that now defines your existence. There's a scratchiness to the wool, a stiffness to the collar that chafes your neck, and a perpetual dampness that seems to seep into the very fibres, never quite drying out. You learn to ignore the persistent itch of the cheap fabric, the way the oversized tunic bunches under your pack, or the relentless squeak of the boots announcing your every step, even when silence is paramount. This isn't about looking smart or feeling ready. It's about being clothed, however inadequately, against the elements and the impending conflict. You quickly understand that this basic, substandard issue is all you'll get, and it will be all you have. There are no warm layers underneath, no waterproof outer shell, just this thin, rough barrier between you and the brutal realities of the Eastern Front. And as you step out of the barracks, the chill wind immediately finds every gap, every ill-fitting seam, reminding you that your primary shelter will often be nothing more than these worn clothes, and whatever meagre cover the land itself provides. The barracks, drafty as it was now, feels like a distant luxury. At the front, the concept of shelter transforms into something far more rudimentary, dictated by the immediate threat and the unforgiving landscape. You learn to live with the ground as your bed and the sky as your ceiling, a grand indifferent canopy. When the order comes to dig in, you attack the earth with whatever you have, often a shared shovel, sometimes just your helmet or an unwieldy entrenching tool that seems designed to bite your fingers more than dig. The foxholes you manage to carve out are shallow temporary depressions, barely large enough for you to curl into. They are less a sanctuary and more a reluctant compromise with gravity and the enemy. You collapse into them bone-weary, hoping for a moment of stillness, a brief respite from the relentless march and the constant hum of tension. But the earth in its generosity also offers a chilling betrayal. When the rain comes, as it so often does, cold and insistent, those shallow holes become personal reservoirs. Water begins to seep in slowly at first, then relentlessly turning the bottom into a viscous cold mud. You lie there trying to lift yourself above the rising damp, but it clings to your uniform, seeps into your bones. Your socks, already heavy with persistent moisture, feel like rough bricks clinging cold and sodden against your skin. There's no escaping it, no matter how much you try to shift or find a dry spot. You learn that discomfort isn't just an occasional state. It's the baseline, the constant hum beneath every moment of your existence. Sometimes, if you're lucky, or if there's a lull, you might huddle in a hastily constructed trench. These are often little more than ditches crudely shored up with scavenged fence posts and whatever branches can be found. Straw might line the bottom, offering a deceptive promise of warmth that quickly succumbs to the omnipresent moisture. The air in these confined spaces is thick with the scent of damp earth, unwashed bodies, and the faint metallic tang of old gunpowder. The cold, however, is your most relentless adversary. It's a constant biting presence that seems to wrap around you, making every breath feel like a small gasp of surrender. During night watches, it becomes a living entity. You can feel the frost forming on your eyebrows, the tiny crystals clinging to your eyelashes. Your boots, if you dare to take them off, might freeze solid by morning, turning into immovable icy blocks. You quickly learn not to remove them, fearing the potential loss of half your toes to the insidious creep of frostbite. Chronic aches become a permanent resident in your body, a dull, pervasive throb that feels like rust settling into your bones, stiffening every joint. You layer every available piece of clothing, turning your already ill-fitting uniform into a bulky, inefficient mass. You see comrades attempting to sleep upright, propped against a wall or a tree, desperate to conserve what little body heat they possess. Sometimes in the morning a silence descends and you discover one of them frozen in place, a grim statue, a stark reminder of the pervasive and indifferent power of the cold. The battle isn't just against the enemy. It's a constant grinding war against the environment itself, where every moment is a desperate measure for warmth, for dryness, for simple survival, a struggle that never truly ends. The terrain itself often becomes your primary, albeit unyielding, shelter. It forces you into an intimate, often brutal relationship with the raw earth. You learn to dig not just for trenches, but for survival, burrowing into the frozen ground with pickaxes that send jarring shocks up your arms, or with the edge of a shared shovel chipping away at the recalcitrant soil. Every movement is an effort, every shovelful a minor victory against the unyielding resistance of the land. When the ground is too hard or time too short, you utilize what little cover the sparse trees offer their thin branches, doing little to break the biting wind. Or you curl up beside a fallen log in the open, hoping its meagre mass provides some slight thermal buffer against the relentless cold. Every brief moment of rest is underscored by a pervasive physical discomfort. Your muscles ache with a deep, bone-weary exhaustion that no amount of sleep seems to alleviate. Your hands, perpetually cold and often raw from digging, feel like clumsy instruments, stiff and unresponsive. There's the lingering scent, a constant companion of gunpowder, sharp and acrid, mixed with the earthy smell of damp soil. It seeps into your uniform, your hair, even your skin, becoming an olfactory signature of your new existence. This isn't just a battlefield. It's a relentless, dehumanizing reality, where the environment conspires with the enemy to chip away at your very essence. You are reduced to your most basic functions, breathing, enduring, surviving. Your sense of self shrinks to the immediate, the pressing need to find a moment of quiet, a sliver of warmth, a brief escape from the relentless exposure. The food, when it arrives, does little to combat this pervasive chill or the gnawing emptiness in your stomach. Daily sustenance for the 1941 Conscript is a monotonous affair, a testament to efficiency over flavour or nutrition. You become intimately familiar with the greasy ladle of kasha or cold buckwheat porridge. It's a thick, bland gruel designed purely for caloric intake, not enjoyment. You eat it quickly, almost without tasting the spoon, moving mechanically from the bowl to your mouth, propelled by an instinct that overrides any sense of pleasure. The accompanying piece of black bread is so hard, so dense, it feels as though it could chip a tooth. You learn to break it off in small pieces, gnawing at it, slowly prolonging the sensation of something substantial in your mouth. There's a grim joke that makes the rounds, muttered between mouthfuls, firm Soviet texture, a taste that truly cements your patriotic duty. You quickly discover that meals are not a given, nor are they a reliable comfort. They're often late delayed by the chaos of disrupted supply lines, or the brutal realities of the front. The thin barley soup, sometimes with a few floating pieces of mystery meat, is often cold, its warmth having dissipated long before it reaches your mess tin. Tinned beef, when it appears, has a metallic taste that coats your tongue, but you consume it with shaking hands, propelled by sheer gratitude for any warmth, any substance that promises a momentary reprieve from the constant hunger. This isn't dining, it's fueling a stark reminder that you are a cog in a machine, requiring only enough energy to continue functioning. The constant low-grade hunger becomes a dull ache, a background noise that never quite fades, always reminding you of the precariousness of your situation. When supply lines are severely disrupted, which becomes an increasingly common occurrence, the concept of a regular meal evaporates entirely. Extreme scarcity becomes the new norm, forcing you and your comrades into desperate ingenuity. You find yourselves eating dried peas hard as pebbles, attempting to soften them in whatever meagre warmth can be scrounged from a dying fire. The taste is bland, chalky, and offers little satisfaction, but it is calories. You also learn to become surprisingly resourceful, or perhaps just desperate enough to attempt making soup from pine needles and whatever scrap of grease can be found in the bottom of a discarded tin. The resulting concoction tastes distinctly of tree bark and engine oil, a flavour profile that settles unpleasantly on your tongue and lingers long after the last drop, a culinary experience you certainly didn't sign up for. You'd think that even a powerful army could feed its men, but you learn that the grandeur of the state often falls short at the personal level, leaving the individual to navigate the grim realities of empty rations. Clean water, that most basic of necessities, transforms into a constant challenge, a precious resource often contaminated or scarce. You become adept at spotting random wells, no matter how run down, or collecting melted snow in your mess tin, hoping it hasn't absorbed too much of the acrid battlefield taint. But the risks are ever present. You see incidents of illness from contaminated sources, men suddenly doubled over, feverish, disappearing from the ranks the next day without explanation. You learn not to ask too many questions when a comrade is simply gone. It's a silence born of fear and a grim acceptance of fate. The need for water becomes primal, outweighing the fear of its potential dangers, a gamble you're forced to take repeatedly throughout your days, a constant roll of the dice with your health. Amidst this relentless deprivation, there are rare moments when a luxury appears, an item so simple in civilian life that its presence here feels like a miracle. A small piece of cured sausage dense with flavour, a tiny block of chocolate that melts slowly on your tongue, releasing a sweet forgotten taste, or a small smear of jam vibrant with the memory of summer berries. These aren't just food items. They are fleeting moments of peace, of hope, of connection to a world that seems impossibly far away. You savour them slowly, letting the taste linger, allowing your mind to briefly escape the harsh realities. Often these precious items are shared communally, passed around with quiet reverence. A single square of chocolate might be broken into 5 pieces, each man receiving a sliver, a silent acknowledgement of shared hardship and unspoken camaraderie. Their immense psychological value far outweighs their nutritional content. They are tiny anchors to sanity, proof that simple pleasures can still exist even in the heart of desolation, a small shared defiance against the all-consuming grimness. The constant failures of the formal Soviet supply system, the late deliveries, the missing provisions, the poor quality of what little does, arrive quickly foster a burgeoning unofficial Red Army economy. This isn't about grand transactions. It's a desperate micro-economy of survival. Essential items from a precious dab of lard to a half-smoked cigarette, a spare button, or even a dented spoon are bartered with intense seriousness. You trade for warmth, for sustenance, for something that might make your impossible daily existence marginally more bearable. A private might exchange his last bit of tobacco for a comrade's slightly larger portion of bread, or a worn uniform buckle might be traded for the promise of a warmer spot by a fire. This informal system, born of necessity and maintained by quiet desperation, highlights the severe resourcefulness demanded for merely staying alive. It's a testament to human ingenuity when faced with systemic failure, a quiet rebellion against the official narrative that proclaims abundance. In this raw, unvarnished existence, personal hygiene becomes a concept redefined by extreme necessity and pervasive inadequacy. It's not about cleanliness in any modern sense, but about mitigating the worst of the filth. You're fortunate if you find a riverbank that isn't frozen solid or under enemy observation. There in the biting wind you might perform a rudimentary wash, splashing cold water over your face and hands. The soap, if you have any, is a harsh industrial kind, smelling faintly of diesel, and doing little more than smearing the grime rather than removing it. It's a brisk, uncomfortable affair, less about feeling clean, and more about a momentary shock to the system, a fleeting illusion of purification. These brief cold ablutions are all you get, a stark contrast to the familiar comfort of a warm bath or a clean basin back home. You quickly learn that true cleanliness is a luxury you can no longer afford, a forgotten relic of your past life. The widespread lack of washing, combined with confinement in close quarters, creates an inescapable olfactory reality. The air in the barracks, the trenches, the crowded transport vehicles becomes a thick stew of unwashed bodies, boiled onions and wet wool. It clings to you, a pervasive heavy scent that no amount of cold washing seems to dislodge. You become accustomed to it. It becomes part of the air you breathe, part of the fabric of your daily life. It's an undeniable presence, a collective human odour of hardship and neglect that is impossible to ignore, yet you do out of sheer necessity. This is the reality, a constant low-grade discomfort that assaults your senses, reminding you of the dehumanizing conditions, a pervasive, almost palpable layer of grime. And then there are the lice. They're a universal, relentless problem, a tiny, tireless, undefeated enemy that sets up permanent residence in your uniform and hair. You feel them constantly, tiny pinpricks of movement and incessant itching that drives you to scratch almost unconsciously. They are everywhere, in the seams of your tunic, in your hair, in your beard. You watch other soldiers, utterly resigned, pick them from their clothing, crushing them between their thumbnails with a grim satisfaction. You soon join them, integrating this ritualistic act into your daily routine, a small, futile battle against an insurmountable foe. Some men resort to dark humour, joking that the lice are keeping me warm at night, a testament to their pervasive presence and the desperate need to find any small sliver of levity in a bleak situation. They're a constant living reminder of your inescapable lack of control, of the way your body and life are no longer truly your own, a persistent, crawling companion. The relentless cold and the desperate need to conserve body heat lead to a chilling compromise with basic comforts. You stop removing your boots, fearing that if you take them off, you might never get them back on, or worse, that your feet will simply freeze solid, leading to the loss of your toes. The result is perpetual dampness, a constant clamminess that never quite dries, creating a breeding ground for chronic blisters. These aren't just minor irritations. They are open sores, raw and painful, making every step a wince-inducing ordeal. You simply assume they are multiplying like rumours in a barracks, a grim acceptance of the inevitable. There's no time for proper care, no clean socks, no antiseptic, just the stoic endurance of the pain. This sacrifice of basic comfort highlights the extreme conditions you're forced to endure, where the integrity of your body is secondary to the immediate imperative of survival. The cumulative effect of prolonged exposure to the elements, the lack of basic hygiene, and the incessant physical demands leads to a noticeable and disheartening physical deterioration. You begin to see it in your comrades, and then startlingly in your own reflection if you ever catch sight of yourself in a shard of broken glass or a still puddle. Your face becomes gaunt, your skin rough as bark, perpetually chapped and windburned. Noses might show the faint purplish tinge of frostbite, a permanent mark of the cold's embrace. Beards, if you have one, become unkempt and matted, a tangle of hair that serves as another home for lice. Your eyes, once perhaps bright with youth, now carry a weary, distant gaze, reflecting the vastness of what you've seen and endured. This physical transformation is profound, causing a disconcerting shift in your self-perception. You feel as though your face is borrowed, perhaps from a tired older stranger, or that it belongs to someone else entirely. The person you were before the one who looked back at you from the mirror at home seems to have vanished, replaced by this hardened, weathered stranger. The soft edges of youth are gone, replaced by a grim resolve, a primal focus on survival that etches itself onto your features. It's a quiet internal crisis, the gradual erasure of who you once were, replaced by the anonymous, resilient face of a soldier, a face that speaks of hunger, cold, and constant fear. You become a shadow defined less by individual characteristics, and more by the collective hardship etched into every man around you. The stark contrast between your reality and that of the command structure is a constant, almost maddening visual. The commissar, for instance, seems to exist in an entirely different world. His tunic is perpetually crisp, pressed as if by magic, unmarred by mud or grime. His boots shine, polished to a gleam that reflects the dim light of the barracks or the grey sky overhead. His appearance is a glaring, almost insulting beacon of cleanliness and comfort, starkly highlighting the vast divide in lived realities. While you're caked in mud, your uniform stiff with dampness and sweat, your face unshaven and grim, the commissar moves with an air of imperviousness, untouched by the very conditions he demands you endure. It's a powerful non-verbal message about the hierarchy, about who suffers and who commands, who starves and who is fed. You resent it quietly, but you also understand its purpose to project an image of control of an unblemished authority that stands above the fray, even as the fray consumes you. Your days are not just filled with enduring conditions, they are defined by relentless physical demands. The primary mode of movement is marching, often for long grueling hours with heavy packs and rifles. Your feet, despite the ill-fitting boots, become numb then ache, then simply feel like lead weights wrapped in damp heavy cloth, unresponsive and painfully sore. Every step is a deliberate effort, a testament to sheer willpower. You push through the pain, the exhaustion, the chafing of the straps against your shoulders. During retreats, the marching turns into desperate jogs, a shambolic rush, where you stumble over uneven terrain, pushed by the fear of being overrun, the weight of your pack, a constant drag, your lungs burning with every gasping breath. The rhythm of the march, the relentless forward momentum, becomes a cruel hypnotic beat that drives you onward even when your body screams for rest, a constant grinding labour that never truly relents. For many of you, this experience is entirely new. Before the summons, you had never held a rifle, your hands more accustomed to the rough handle of a plough, or the delicate touch needed for tending to animals. The transition from civilian life to soldier is abrupt, brutal, and profoundly unprepared. Formal military training is minimal, almost comically, so given the scale of the conflict you're suddenly thrust into, you receive at best 3 days of rudimentary instruction. This isn't comprehensive combat readiness. It's a quick and dirty crash course designed to get you holding a weapon and marching in a rough semblance of formation. You're shown how to load an old, often jamming Tsar-era rifle, a relic of a bygone war, its mechanism stiff and unreliable. You might get only 5 rounds of ammunition for practice, just enough to understand the basic mechanics of firing, but nowhere near enough to truly familiarise yourself with a weapon, let alone master it. The expectation is that you will learn on the journey west, or more accurately, how to aim while moving amidst the chaos and terror of real combat. This practical, brutal education is delivered not by patient instructors on a training ground, but by the sharp, unforgiving realities of the front line. Every explosion, every distant rattle of machine gun fire, every terrified cry becomes a lesson. You learn not from drills, but from desperate necessity, from watching the men around you, from the raw instinct to survive. There's no time for finesse, no luxury for theory. It's about immediate application, about simply staying alive long enough to figure out how to be effective. The lack of proper preparation underscores the immense scale of the conscription effort and the desperate urgency of the Soviet war machine, which valued sheer numbers over individual training, a grim calculus. A significant portion of your daily life as a conscript is spent in a ceaseless, brutal communion with the earth digging. You dig anti-tank ditches, vast, gaping wounds in the landscape, designed to impede the relentless German advance. You dig trenches, your temporary homes, the only protection against the barrage of enemy fire. This isn't light work. It's a grueling, back-breaking labour that feels endless. Often you share shovels, perhaps 3 to 1, meaning you wait your turn or you improvise with your helmet scraping away at the soil, or you grapple with those unwieldy entrenching tools that seem designed to bite your fingers more than dig. The conditions are almost always challenging frozen ground that resists every blow or root-filled soil that snags your shovel and forces you to hack and chop. The constant physical strain leaves your muscles aching, your hands raw and blistered, but the digging never stops. It's a Sisyphean task, a never-ending cycle of excavation that defines your physical reality and chips away at your spirit, leaving you perpetually tired. And then abruptly you find yourself assigned to perilous tasks for which you are utterly untrained. One day you're simply a conscript, the next you might be designated a sapper, told to dig holes and lay mines, highly dangerous work, demanding precision and nerve that you simply do not possess. Or you are sent on salvage duty into heavily snowing enemy-ridden woods, tasked with recovering equipment or supplies from fallen comrades or abandoned positions. An officer offers no comfort, no detailed instruction, just a curt, chilling directive: better learn fast. There is no room for hesitation, no opportunity for protest. You are simply expected to perform, to adapt, to survive, or to become another casualty, a stark testament to your expendability. The work is ceaseless, extending beyond digging to encompass an endless cycle of reinforcement and maintenance. You find yourself constantly restacking sandbags, their rough texture, chafing your hands, creating blisters that quickly merge into a landscape of raw skin and grime. Broken shovel handles must be replaced often with makeshift repairs fashioned from scavenged wood. Communication lines constantly damaged by shelling, or the harsh environment need to be wired up, a fiddly task performed in freezing temperatures with numb fingers. And the trench walls, your only real protection, require constant reinforcement, with log stones or packed snow, a never-ending battle against erosion, and the constant threat of collapse. Your hands, already a mess of blisters, split skin, and ingrained grime, become a testament to this ceaseless labour. They are no longer soft civilian hands. They are the gnarled, rough instruments of a soldier, permanently stained and scarred, bearing the indelible marks of your new trade. Beyond the relentless physical labour, the core, terrifying responsibility is combat itself. This is where your rudimentary training meets the brutal reality. You fire your unreliable rifle, its old mechanism often sticking, forcing you to wrestle with the bolt, cursing under your breath as precious seconds tick by. Engagements are chaotic, desperate affairs, often unfolding with little coordination, a maelstrom of noise and confusion. You navigate the terrifying landscape of artillery fire, the ground shaking beneath you, sending geysers of mud and shrapnel into the air. Small arms fire whizzes past, a constant buzzing threat. Support is minimal, ammunition often scarce, and clear orders from command are a rare luxury. In this environment where survival is paramount, merely not losing becomes a form of victory, a grim triumph over overwhelming odds. You learn to operate on pure instinct, a primal need to stay alive, to keep moving, to keep firing, even when hope feels like a distant memory, a flicker almost extinguished. The abrupt end to your civilian youth is a shock that reverberates through every aspect of your new life. You were likely a 19-year-old, perhaps even younger, who had never left his village. Your world was contained within the familiar boundaries of your community, shaped by the cycles of the seasons and the demands of agrarian life. One day, you were hauling beats, the next you were a soldier. The impersonal summons delivered by that man on a motorbike marked not just a change of address, but an immediate brutal severance from your youth, your innocence, and everything familiar. You were pulled from a simple, predictable existence and plunged into a maelstrom of violence and uncertainty. There was no gentle transition, no time for farewells. It was a sudden, jarring rip in the fabric of your life, leaving an exposed, gaping wound. This profound lack of prior military preparedness is evident in almost every new Red Army recruit. You and many like you had never held a rifle. The tools of war were alien to your hands, your minds unaccustomed to the brutal logic of combat. This underscores your complete and utter unpreparedness for the conflict you were instantly thrust into. There was no gradual acclimatization, no theoretical understanding. It was immediate visceral immersion. The military machine needed bodies, warm bodies, and the finer points of training or prior experience were secondary to the sheer necessity of filling the ranks. You were a civilian still in all but name, facing a reality that demanded the skills of a veteran, a reality that would teach you lessons you never asked for. Your formal military education amounts to little more than a grim joke. As you've experienced it, consists of only 3 days of rudimentary instruction, lopsided marching, a few drills that seem to have no bearing on the chaotic reality of the front, and firing at wooden silhouettes with a precious few rounds of ammunition. This meagre offering barely prepares you for the immediate shock of combat, let alone the long grinding ordeal ahead. The true learning you quickly discover happens through brutal, on-the-job experience. Every shell burst, every enemy advance, every decision made in the heat of the moment becomes a lesson etched into your memory, often accompanied by the terrible cost of error. It's a baptism by fire, a harsh pedagogical method, where survival is the only true measure of understanding. You learn to discern the whistle of an incoming shell, the distant chatter of a machine gun, the subtle shifts in the wind that carry the scent of danger. These are the real lessons delivered not in a classroom but on the terrifying dynamic battlefield, etching themselves into your very being. The contrast with civilian life isn't just about your own sudden transformation. It's also evident in the lives left behind, particularly the gender-specific roles and societal expectations. Your thoughts often drift to the family back home, your mother, her face etched with worry. Perhaps still crying, her hands now burdened with tasks that were once your father's or yours. Your sister, whose letters arrive rarely if at all, are filled with trembling prayers for your safety and mundane descriptions of the hens laying eggs, a stark, almost absurd juxtaposition between the brutal reality of the front and the enduring rhythms of home life. This highlights the stark gendered division of labour and survival in wartime society. Men fight, women endure and maintain, holding the fragile fabric of life together on the home front. These brief, precious glimpses into the world you left behind underscore the immense personal cost of the war, not just for those fighting, but for those waiting forever change by separation. As the days blur into weeks and weeks into an eternity, the vibrant memories of childhood and pre-war life begin to fade. The image of the creaking kitchen table where your family shared meagre meals, the comforting smell of boiled potatoes that once filled your home, the sound of your sister's carefree laughter. These once vivid recollections become softer, hazier, like old photographs bleached by the sun. They are slowly, inexorably replaced by the immediate harsh realities of survival, the biting cold, the gnawing hunger, the constant threat of death, the pervasive dampness. This fading of before the war demonstrates the profound psychological impact of your abrupt new education. Your mind, overwhelmed by the sensory input and emotional strain of the present, begins to shed the past as a mechanism of self-preservation. It's a painful but necessary psychological distance, a way of coping with the unbearable contrast between who you were and who you are forced to be, a process of internal erosion. The profound youth of many conscripts, a silent, heartbreaking truth, adds another layer to this tragic transformation. Some of you are barely 16, others perhaps no older than 15, thrust into an adult world of unimaginable horror. Your rapid exposure to the grim realities of war, the sudden disappearance of comrades, the silent, haunted faces of survivors, the discovery of a child's hand-sewn doll in an abandoned farmhouse. underscores a profound and irreversible loss of innocence. The doll, a tiny poignant relic of a civilian life shattered, becomes a stark symbol of all that has been lost, not just for you, but for an entire generation. It's a quiet moment, a silent reflection on the innocence brutally stripped away, leaving only the hardened shell of a soldier, a shell that once housed a child. As your daily struggle for survival consumes every waking moment, your existence becomes inextricably shaped by the fundamental realities of the Soviet system and the relentless environment. You're not an individual making choices. You're a component, a piece within a vast, unyielding machine. This sets the groundwork for how power is exerted, how control is maintained, and how in rare, quiet moments it might even be resisted. From the moment you received that summons, you were immediately subsumed into an inescapable social hierarchy, a rigid structure where individual identity was replaced by the collective designation of soldier of the workers' and peasants' Red Army. You no longer have a name that matters beyond roll call, you have a function. Authority flows seemingly from distant, unseen headquarters, but its immediate manifestation is intensely personal and absolute. The sergeants and lieutenants who stand before you embody this power. Their commands are direct, unwavering, their will your new law. There is no room for debate, no space for personal opinion. You learn to move when told to dig, when pointed to march until you drop. This absolute authority cascading down from the highest echelons of the military leaves no doubt about your place at the very bottom of the chain. You're to obey, without question, without hesitation. Your previous life, your personal desires, your very autonomy are now secondary, if they exist at all, to the demands of the Soviet state. This is the new normal, a constant pervasive presence that dictates every aspect of your daily struggle, a silent, unyielding pressure. The conscription process itself was a blunt instrument, non-negotiable and final. That summons paper with no return address was more than just an official document. It was decree. It signified a fixed destiny, a predetermined path from which there was no deviation. Your individual agency, your desires, your fears became completely secondary to the overwhelming demands of the state. You were needed, and therefore you were taken. This unquestioning absorption into the military machine reinforces the fundamental principle of Soviet society. The individual exists for the collective, and personal will is subservient to state necessity. There's a quiet resignation that settles over you and your comrades, an understanding that your fate is no longer your own, that you're merely pieces on a grand brutal chessboard moved by unseen hands. This military structure is not just about logistics and combat. It is deeply, inextricably intertwined with political ideology. The presence of political officers is a constant reminder of this. They are often detached from the front's grimy reality, yet they deliver relentless speeches about the ideological dimensions of our struggle and Stalin's strength. Their words are designed to control narratives, to instill fervour, to remind you of the grand purpose behind your suffering. You stand, you listen, but often their impassioned rhetoric is met with a quiet internal apathy. You hear the words, proletarian struggle, motherland of victory, but they often feel hollow, disconnected from the immediate visceral realities of hunger, cold and death. You nod, you feign attention because you know the dangers of not doing so, but your mind is more concerned with the next meal, the next enemy barrage, the next moment of simple survival, a stark internal conflict. The stark disconnect between command and frontline reality is a constant source of quiet frustration, though expressing it openly is a dangerous folly. You see it in the clean, well-fed political officers and commanders who visit the front, their uniforms unblemished, their faces unlined by hunger or exhaustion. They deliver orders that seem to come from a different world, often unrealistic in their demands given your meagre resources. Strategic explanations, when offered at all, are reduced to vague slogans, simplistic pronouncements that bear little resemblance to the chaotic, terrifying reality you experience daily. It's a profound chasm where the abstract world of strategy clashes violently with the immediate visceral world of survival. You understand that their perception of the war is entirely different from yours, making their commands feel almost absurd, yet you must still follow them, a silent pact of obedience. This chasm underscores a fundamental dehumanization of the individual for the collective goal. The sheer scale of conscription, the millions of men being rapidly deployed, means that you as an individual are often anonymous, indistinguishable from the thousands of others. Your worth is not tied to your unique personhood, your skills, or your dreams, but solely to your usefulness in holding a line or contributing to a strategic delay. You are a unit, a number, a body to be expended for the greater good of the Soviet state. This isn't a judgment, it's a cold, hard fact of your existence. You become accustomed to the casual mention of missing conscripts, the piles of bodies that accumulate, seeing them not as individuals but as markers of the immense, relentless cost of war, a cost you are constantly aware you might soon pay yourself. Your individuality is subsumed, your identity dissolved into the vast churning maw of the war machine, leaving little trace. The core economy and resource management of the Soviet Union in 1941 are under immense, unprecedented strain. The war effort, a colossal undertaking, immediately leads to critical shortages of almost every essential resource. You feel this acutely in the insufficient, poor-quality uniforms that chafe and offer little warmth, in the outdated weapons that jam at critical moments, and most terrifyingly, in the chronic ammunition deficit that often leaves you with only 5 rounds for your unreliable rifle. It's a stark realization even a state as vast as the Soviet Union struggles to arm and equip its soldiers adequately, transforming every bullet into a precious commodity, every piece of clothing a valued possession. The theoretical might of the industrial base feels a distant concept when you're shivering in a threadbare tunic, staring at an empty ammunition pouch, a grim testament to the economic strain. The rapid German advance, a relentless, unexpected onslaught, severely disrupts Soviet supply lines. The chaos of retreat, the destruction of infrastructure, and the sheer speed of the invasion mean that the formal channels of supply often break down entirely. You experience this as delayed supply drops explained away with vague pronouncements about bad weather or the supply lines jammed. But the reality is far grimmer: an overall inability to adequately equip or provision frontline Red Army troops. Food is scarce, proper medical supplies are almost non-existent, and ammunition arrives in trickles, not torrents. You learn to expect very little from the official channels, forced to rely on your own ingenuity and that of your comrades to find what you need to survive a constant scramble for resources. The Soviet Union's economic base, still primarily agrarian, heavily reliant on collective farms known as kolkhoz, struggles immensely under the twin pressures of feeding both its massive civilian population and its burgeoning military. This struggle manifests in your daily reality as monotonous low-calorie rations. The kashar and black bread you subsist on are the bare minimum to keep you functioning, not thriving. You're constantly aware of the pervasive reality of extreme hunger, a dull, aching emptiness that rarely dissipates. It's a hunger that isn't just about wanting food. It's a physical depletion, a constant drain on your energy and your will. The vast fields you once worked, now often scorched or under enemy occupation, cannot provide enough, and the consequences fall directly onto your mess tin, a constant reminder of the economic scarcity. Adding to this grim economic reality is the strategic doctrine of scorched earth, a brutal policy implemented by the Soviets to deny the advancing enemy any resources. This means the deliberate destruction of villages, crops and infrastructure within the path of the German advance. You're often forced to witness, and sometimes even participate in, the devastation of your own land, your own homes. The sight of burning fields of abandoned houses torched to deny shelter to the enemy leaves a bitter taste in your mouth, a profound sense of loss that goes beyond personal hardship. It is a necessary evil, you're told, a grim tactic for a desperate war, but it underscores the immense destructive power of the conflict and the profound sacrifices demanded of everyone, even the land itself turning familiar landscapes into charred remnants. As the formal supply system collapses, a new resilient structure emerges from the ashes of official failure, the burgeoning unofficial Red Army economy. You become an active participant in this desperate informal market, where essential items like food, tobacco, and basic comforts are desperately traded among soldiers. A precious lump of sugar might be exchanged for a bit of twine, a well-preserved button for a handful of scavenged nails. This barter system highlights the severe resourcefulness demanded for survival, a testament to the ingenuity and sheer will of men pushed to their limits. It's a quiet subversion of the centralized economic system born of immediate need where personal survival trumps ideological purity. This shadow economy thrives in the gaps left by official incompetence, a lifeline woven from desperation and quiet collaboration, a testament to the human spirit's resilience. Beyond the man-made chaos, nature itself proves a relentless fury, a universal threat that conspires with the enemy. The Eastern Front is a landscape defined by harsh and rapidly shifting weather conditions. One day the humid summer air might hang heavy and oppressive, making every movement a struggle. The next relentless rain turns trenches into cold, viscous mud, swallowing boots and soaking uniforms to the bone. This is followed with terrifying speed by early and brutal frosts, then heavy continuous snowfall that seems to freeze before it hits the ground, blanketing the landscape in an unforgiving white. The cold isn't just a discomfort. It's a profound, inescapable presence that permeates every fibre of your being, becoming an ever-present enemy, shaping the very experience of survival. You learn to brace yourself not just for enemy fire, but for the insidious creep of the cold that gnaws at your extremities, turning your fingers numb and your breath into frozen clouds. The unforgiving terrain itself becomes an adversary as potent as any German soldier. Thick forests, dense and dark, conceal enemy movements, making every rustle of leaves or snap of a twig a source of psychological tension. You move through them, with a heightened sense of alert your rifle at the ready, every shadow a potential threat. Then there are the bogs, treacherous expanses of stagnant water, and twisted gnarled trees where every step is a gamble, your feet sinking into the icy muck threatening to trap you. And when the ground is frozen, it becomes rock hard, making the act of digging a constant brutal struggle, pickaxes bouncing off the unyielding surface, sending jarring vibrations up your arms. These natural features aren't just obstacles, they're active participants in your struggle, shaping the battlefield, dictating movement and adding another layer of danger to an already perilous existence, a silent, powerful opponent. The pervasive cold transforms from a mere physical discomfort into a profound systemic threat. It's not just a chill in the air, it's a living, breathing enemy that permeates every aspect of your being. It wraps itself around you, seemingly settling between your ribs, becoming an intimate, inescapable presence. Your breath turns to visible plumes, a constant reminder of the freezing air you inhale. Your fingers and toes ache with a deep, persistent cold, often numb and unresponsive. This constant exposure, combined with the lack of proper clothing and nutrition, makes you vulnerable to a host of ailments. The cold shapes your very experience of survival, forcing you to conserve energy, huddle with comrades, and dream of a warmth that seems impossibly far away. It is a slow, insidious enemy, eroding your physical resilience and your mental fortitude day by day, a relentless, quiet assault. Beyond the biting, cold, systemic threats like famine and disease loom large, unaddressed, and often fatal. The lack of consistent nutritious food combined with constant exposure to cold and damp conditions creates a fertile breeding ground for widespread hunger and illness. You hear the constant symphony of coughing in the barracks and trenches, a pervasive sound that speaks of unchecked respiratory infections. Unaddressed sickness becomes common, men growing weaker fevers taking hold with little to no formal relief or medical intervention. There are no proper doctors, no antibiotics, just the grim hope that your body can fight off whatever afflicts it. A comrade might develop a persistent cough that worsens day by day, his breathing growing ragged, until one morning he simply isn't there, absorbed by the anonymous, indifferent maw of disease. You realise that the enemy is not just the Germans, it is also the hunger that gnaws at your insides, the cold that seeps into your bones, and the sickness that preys on your weakened state, a trifecta of silent killers. The sensory experience of the battlefield environment is overwhelming, a constant assault on your senses. The pervasive smell is a complex cocktail, damp cloth and unwashed bodies. A pungent, unavoidable aroma that clings to you mingled with the faint, ever-present tang of oil and gunpowder, the metallic scent of conflict. There's the chilling sound of frost crunching underfoot as you patrol every step, a sharp, amplified sound in the otherwise muted landscape. And the wind, a biting, relentless force, slips between buttons, finds every gap in your ill-fitting uniform and seems to whisper promises of unbearable cold. This sensory overload, this constant barrage of uncomfortable sensations, combines to create a profound and indelible impression of the Eastern Front, a world defined by its harshness, its discomfort and its pervasive threat, a tableau of sensory assault. Within this challenging macro-environment, the Red Army conscript experiences the raw, unyielding mechanisms of power and control. It's here in the trenches and on the frozen marches that these abstract concepts become immediate visceral realities, often leading to stark choices and desperate responses. You learn quickly that individual rights have been summarily stripped from you the moment you receive that summons. Your sergeants embody arbitrary authority, simply pointing and issuing orders, without formality, their commands flowing from a higher unseen power. This cascading demand for unquestioning obedience leaves no room for hesitation or personal input. You are a tool, a resource, and your sole purpose is to execute orders no matter how illogical or dangerous they may seem. This unyielding hierarchy is not just a structure, it's a lived reality that defines every minute of your existence, a constant reminder of your lack of autonomy. Propaganda divorced from the grim realities of the front serves as a crucial tool of control. Political officers, often cleaner and better fed than you and your comrades, deliver relentless speeches. They talk of proletarian struggle, of the historical inevitability of victory and of Stalin's strength, as if his will alone can hold back the enemy. Their words are designed to control narratives, to instill fervour, to remind you of the grand purpose behind your suffering. But as you stand there listening to the impassioned rhetoric, you often meet it with quiet derision. You exchange glances with the men beside you, a shared smirk, a muttered comment acknowledging the vast disconnect between their lofty words and your cold, hungry reality. You learn to give the outward appearance of attention, nodding, standing at attention, because you know the danger of showing anything less. But inside your mind is more concerned with the next meal, the next enemy barrage, the next moment of simple survival, a silent battle of wills. Orders from command are often painfully unrealistic, detached from the dire situation on the ground. You're told to hold until told otherwise, with minimal resources, armed with outdated rifles, and often critically low on ammunition. There are vague promises of further training on the journey west, a hollow reassurance that mocks the immediate brutal education of combat. Untrained men are issued impossible tasks, sent on missions that feel like suicide, contributing to widespread confusion and a pervasive sense of being expendable. A lieutenant might sketch out a strategic delay action in chalk on a piece of firewood, highlighting the improvised, almost desperate nature of the strategy. This fluidity and improvisation at higher levels directly impact you, the frontline soldier, as you bear the brunt of unfeasible directives. You are simply expected to perform regardless of the odds, regardless of the logic, a grim and constant expectation. This functional view of soldiers leads to a profound dehumanization through military utility. You and your fellow Red Army soldiers are often viewed purely as functional units, your worth tied solely to your usefulness in holding a line or contributing to a strategic delay. Your lives, your deaths are statistics absorbed into the larger picture of the war effort. This is exemplified by the casual mention of missing conscripts, the piles of anonymous bodies that are simply gone, unmourned, their names rarely spoken. You're a resource to be managed, expended and replaced, rather than an individual with a past, a family or a future. This brutal calculus is understood by every man in the trench, fostering a grim acceptance of their expendable nature, a silent and chilling understanding of your place in the vast churning mechanism of conflict. On the front lines, the immediate superior's will truly is law. There are no formal courts-martial for minor transgressions, no lengthy judicial processes. If you get into a fight over a stolen cigarette, a rare, precious commodity, the dispute is settled swiftly and brutally by your sergeant or lieutenant. A sharp warning is followed by a boot to the ribs, and the matter is considered closed. This immediate physical enforcement of order bypasses any formal legal process, demonstrating the raw direct power wielded by those directly above you. Justice is quick, often painful, and dispensed without appeal. You learn to walk a very fine line to keep your head down, and to avoid drawing unwanted attention, for the consequences of even minor infractions can be severe and immediate, leaving no room for argument. But beyond the sergeants, a chilling presence looms, a constant reminder of a far greater, more pervasive threat, the NKVD. You see their men at train sidings, their faces unreadable, their uniforms immaculate, watching, observing. Their presence serves as a constant unspoken warning that discipline is a matter of life and mysterious disappearance. This fosters a pervasive fear that enforces compliance far more effectively than any direct threat or formal charge. You understand that showing dissent questioning orders, or even just appearing too dispirited, could lead to you simply vanishing without trial, without explanation. Your comrades learn not to ask too many questions when someone is no longer present. This chilling reality, this implied brutality, is a powerful enforcement mechanism designed to maintain absolute order through fear and severe, often unrecorded consequences, a silent terror that permeates the very air you breathe. While not explicitly stated, a dynamic of collective responsibility underpins your existence. Although you're not formally punished for another's mistakes, there's an implicit understanding that your unit's fate is intertwined. The general reluctance to inquire about missing comrades, the quiet acceptance when someone is gone, creates a tacit system of collective accountability. You are implicitly responsible for each other's actions, and your survival in a way depends on the unit's cohesion. If one man falters, it can impact everyone. This creates a powerful unspoken bond, forcing you to rely on each other, to push each other to hold the line together, knowing that your individual actions contribute to the collective chance of survival, a grim shared burden. You quickly realize that as a conscript you have virtually no individual rights. You are called to service without consultation, deployed without your consent, and assigned dangerous tasks without any say in the matter. Your personal safety and well-being are entirely secondary, completely subject to military necessity. If the command decides a position must be held, you hold it regardless of the odds, regardless of the cost to your own life. There is no appeal, no recourse, no avenue for expressing your concerns or fears. This complete lack of individual agency, this absolute subjugation to military will, is a defining characteristic of your new life. You are a tool of the state, nothing more, nothing less, and your existence is entirely dictated by its needs, a pawn in a larger game. The implied brutality of the discipline, coupled with a chilling threat of mysterious disappearance, and the summary nature of field justice, creates a brutal and immediate system of enforcement. This system is designed first and foremost to maintain order through pervasive fear and the promise of severe, often unrecorded consequences. You understand that any misstep, any perceived weakness can lead to a swift and irreversible end. There are no formal records of these disappearances, no trials, no appeals. It simply happens. This absence of formal process makes the threat all the more terrifying, for there are no rules to understand, no boundaries to push. The invisible hand of authority can strike at any moment for any reason or no reason at all. It's a constant low-level hum of anxiety that underpins your daily life, a silent whip that drives you forward, a chilling reminder of your precarious existence. For a 1941 Red Army conscript, the prospect of death is not a distant possibility. It is an omnipresent expectation. It is woven into the very fabric of your existence. You see it in the faint blood stain on a discarded belt, a grim reminder of a previous owner whose fate is now sealed. You find it etched onto your own soldier's card, where your blood type is prominently displayed, a chilling practical detail that signifies someone already expects to find your unconscious body and know how to treat it, or more likely how to deal with it in its final state. Death isn't an abstract concept or a tragic end. It's a constant companion walking alongside you in the trenches, whispering in the freezing wind, always present, always imminent. You begin to internalize it, to accept its inevitability, becoming desensitized to its pervasive presence, a grim dance with mortality. Orders to hold the position with minimal ammunition, outdated rifles, and no support against overwhelming odds often feel like implicit death sentences. You're sent to face impossible odds, expected to perform acts of suicidal bravery, not for victory, but for a strategic delay, or to simply buy time for others. There's a grim acceptance of fate that settles over you and your comrades, a fatalistic understanding that you are merely sacrifices. You hear a comrade whisper, "Perhaps we are tomorrow," referring to those who have fallen, a quiet acknowledgement that your turn is coming. This acceptance mirrors a kind of ritualistic atonement, a collective offering of lives for the greater cause, a grim duty that transcends individual survival. You're expected to die, and you accept it as part of the terrible contract of your new existence, a silent surrender. The sheer scale of casualties means that individual deaths are often nameless, absorbed into the larger horror. A man might be Yuri, or maybe Ivan, his identity blurring into the collective mass of fallen soldiers. His body, if found at all, is simply gone now, quickly covered or moved with no one looking too hard or speaking their names again. This anonymity of casualties signifies their immediate erasure, a brutal testament to the expendability of individual lives. There is no time for mourning, no space for individual grief. The living must focus on surviving, and the dead simply cease to exist, their identities washed away by the tide of war. It's a chilling form of depersonalization, where even in death you remain an anonymous cog in the machine, forgotten almost before your body is cold. In this relentless landscape of death, honor is redefined not as individual glory or decisive victory, but as sheer endurance. It's about continuing to function in the face of impossible odds, about pushing through the hunger, the cold, the fear, and the pervasive despair. When you survive another day, when your unit holds a line even briefly against overwhelming numbers, the grim assessment, "we just didn't lose," becomes a profound form of success for the conscript. It is a victory of mere existence, a quiet triumph of not having succumbed. There are no medals for this kind of honour, no parades, just the heavy shared knowledge that you have endured, that you're still here against all reasonable expectation. This redefinition of honour underscores the brutal pragmatism of the Eastern Front, where the goals are survival and delay, not romanticised heroics. Repeated exposure to combat and casualties leads to a chilling psychological desensitisation to death. The initial shock, the visceral fear, gradually gives way to a grim detachment. You stop reacting to every sound, every distant explosion, every cry. Your mind erects a protective barrier, a necessary mechanism for survival. You operate under a grim unspoken rule: if it didn't hit you, it wasn't meant for you. This isn't callousness. It's a form of psychological self-preservation, a way to compartmentalise the constant horror to prevent your mind from shattering under the weight of what it witnesses daily. You learn to walk past fallen comrades without a flinch, to focus only on the immediate threat, the next step, the next breath. Death becomes commonplace, an expected part of the landscape, and your reactions become muted, dulled by the sheer volume of what you endure, a grim adaptation. Despite the unyielding power hierarchy and the pervasive fear seeds of discontent, and perhaps even a form of peasant rebellion, are sown in the extreme conditions. The excessive physical labour, the chronic hunger that gnaws at your insides, the inadequate equipment that fails you at critical moments, and the relentless impersonal nature of the conflict itself, all these create fertile ground for despair. It's a despair that rarely manifests as organised overt mutiny. Instead, it breeds quiet dissent, whispered complaints in the dark shared grimaces and personal breakdowns that are often unseen internal. You see men simply stop moving, their eyes vacant, their will broken. This isn't a grand rebellion, but a slow internal erosion of morale, a quiet refusal to fully embrace the propaganda. The reality of combat when it comes is far from strategic and organised. It often unfolds as chaotic, desperate engagements, a maelstrom of noise, confusion and raw terror. You find yourself in disorganised retreats, a panicked scramble across treacherous terrain, often without clear orders. You fire your rifle blindly, more for morale than accuracy, just to hear the reassuring sound of your own weapon, to feel like you're doing anything. Individual acts of bravery, a comrade covering your retreat, another holding a position against impossible odds, are interspersed with the moments of despair, men simply collapsing, their spirit broken. It is not the coordinated Red Army action depicted in propaganda posters. It is a desperate, fragmented struggle for survival, a testament to human endurance in the face of overwhelming disarray. Despite the overwhelming odds, there are rare, fleeting moments of localized resistance, small, brief victories that ignite a spark of hope. You witness, or are part of these small triumphs, an anti-tank gun carefully aimed, managing to stop a panzer in its tracks, its steel behemoth suddenly rendered immobile, a smoking ruin. Or perhaps a successful ambush of a German supply train yielding precious supplies that are quickly, almost ravenously distributed amongst your hungry comrades. These are not strategic victories that turn the tide of the war, but they are profoundly meaningful at the personal level. They provide fleeting moments of pure, dumb hope, a brief exhilarating sensation that perhaps, just perhaps, you're not entirely helpless, that the enemy is not invincible, and that your struggle is not entirely in vain. These small visceral wins are quickly absorbed into the relentless daily grind, but their memory lingers, a quiet testament to the enduring human capacity for resistance, a spark in the darkness. The inhumanity of enemy tactics, particularly the methodical German advance, adds another layer to your psychological burden. Their movements are often perceived as methodical, calm, and mechanical, a chilling efficiency that contrasts sharply with the Red Army's disarray and improvisation. The relentless precision of their artillery, the synchronized movements of their tanks, and the chilling effectiveness of their infantry amplify your sense of being overwhelmed. It feels less like a human enemy, and more like an unstoppable machine, an impersonal force grinding its way across the land. This perceived mechanical efficiency of the enemy amplifies the conscript's sense of being a small, vulnerable obstacle in the path of an inexorable force, deepening the psychological impact of the constant threat, a chilling, persistent dread. The incessant threat itself, the constant barrage of artillery, the whiz of small arms fire, the terrifying possibility of flanking manoeuvres, combines with the lack of clear plans or communication from command to create a profound and lasting psychological toll. You're always on edge, always listening, always scanning the horizon. Sleep when it comes is fitful, haunted by the sounds of battle or the imagined whispers of the enemy. The sense of isolation of being a small, insignificant pawn in a vast chaotic game weighs heavily on your spirit. This constant, unremitting pressure grinds away at your mental fortitude, transforming you into a vigilant, perpetually anxious survivor, your nervous system frayed, your ability to relax almost entirely eroded. It's a silent internal battle waged alongside the external one, a war on your very sanity. And then, just as despair threatens to become absolute, a sudden, almost unbelievable piece of news ripples through the ranks, a broader counter-offensive near Moscow. Whispers turn into a rising murmur of cautious hope. Soviet forces pushing back. You hear the words like a balm on your raw nerves. This marks a significant shift, transforming the nature of your ongoing struggle from pure desperate defense to the potential for advance. It's a fragile, nascent hope, but it's hope nonetheless. After months of retreat, of constant giving ground, the idea of pushing back, of regaining territory, is almost revolutionary. It injects a cautious sense of purpose, of possibility, transforming the daily grind of survival into something with a distant, shimmering goal, a new reason to endure. The social fabric around you, though strained, continues to offer glimmers of shared humanity. Communication still primarily navigates the peril of open opinion, relying on whispers, mutters, and shared smirks about political speeches or unrealistic orders. Dark humour remains a crucial coping mechanism, allowing you and your comrades to process absurdities and maintain a semblance of sanity without direct confrontation, reminding you that even in the bleakest moments a grim chuckle can exist. The language of silence and shared understanding has deepened, relying on glances and nods, a collective understanding of hardship and fear, demonstrating a profound bond formed in adversity that transcends words. The brutal environment still suppresses personal expression, leading to a sense of anonymity where names are heavy and soldiers are shadows with rifles. Yet improvised communication in crisis, like using a broken mirror to signal, continues to highlight your collective resourcefulness over formal etiquette, proving that connection will find a way even in the most desolate circumstances, a testament to human ingenuity. Cultural disciplines, small performances of humanity persist. The spontaneous playing of a wheezy accordion sounding like a dying goat, or the soft melancholic singing of a folk song by a comrade, continues to serve as vital cultural anchors, allowing tired men to momentarily feel just people again. Small acts of art and creativity in desperation, like the wiry mechanic drawing birds in the margins of his orders, or carving a chessboard into a plank, still provide a fleeting escape and a means to assert humanity against the overwhelming odds. The shared rituals of coping, like the communal passing of tobacco or sugar cubes, remain profound social acts, creating temporary bonds and moments of collective respite. And the comfort of grueling routine, the repetitive motions of cleaning a rifle or packing meagre gear, continues to be a soothing discipline, providing a sense of control and normalcy amidst the chaos, a quiet rhythm in a world that makes no sense, a small bastion of order. Spiritual frameworks and superstitions still find a way to manifest. Private expressions of faith and despair, whether a prayer or a curse muttered under the breath, continue to be a way of coping with overwhelming circumstances. Pervasive folk beliefs and omen interpretation persist, like a ghost story about a lost cavalry unit singing through the fog, or Victor's personal myth of a star named Yavoskaya, signifying that someone's still alive there. The devastating reality of the war has led to a profound questioning or abandonment of abstract faith, as symbolized by the grim act of burning excess supplies, feeling like you are signaling a god you stopped believing in. Yet the brief encounter with a priest whose solemn nod could be interpreted as a blessing or a farewell still highlights the lingering presence of traditional spiritual figures offering a quiet moment of reflection on mortality, a fleeting comfort that defies the secular reality of your existence. Love, marriage, and family life continue to exert their quiet, enduring pull. Nostalgia for home and family, the mother crying the father's silent gift of a charm, a sister's trembling letter, the smell of boiled potatoes, remains a vital psychological anchor, a connection to a world of warmth and love that feels impossibly distant. But the constant trauma and exhaustion of war cause these cherished memories to fade, creating a painful psychological disconnection from your former lives and loved ones, a silent erasure of the before the war. In the absence of immediate family, shared desperation continues to foster surrogate bonds between comrades, small acts of kindness and solidarity hinting at new temporary family connections. The doll, a powerful symbol of lost innocence, still serves as a poignant reminder of the civilian lives irrevocably impacted by the war, a silent acknowledgement of the universal human cost. The weight of clan identity, a concept once deeply rooted in your village life, has transformed into a profound, almost complete suppression of individualism and a pervasive sense of anonymity. From the very moment you were conscripted, your prior identity was summarily stripped away. The uniform became your new skin, the role of soldier, your new name. You entered a world where your actual name, the one whispered by your mother, became a heavy, almost irrelevant thing. Officers, overwhelmed by the sheer numbers, often forgot names mid-sentence, moving on to the next indistinguishable face. You were no longer Ivan from that village by the river. You were simply a pair of hands, a body to hold a rifle, a statistic. This profound anonymity isn't just a practical consequence of large-scale mobilization. It's a constant low-grade dehumanization designed to make you a more pliable, more expendable unit in the vast machinery of war, a silent internal sacrifice. The relentless experiences of war have rapidly and brutally erased personal histories. You and your comrades have collectively stopped talking about the before, the life you lived prior to this nightmare, simply because it hurts too much. The memories of home, of family, of the mundane joys and sorrows of civilian life are too sharp a contrast to the brutal reality of the present. To dwell on them is to invite a debilitating wave of grief and longing that you simply cannot afford. This self-imposed silence contributes to a profound dehumanization, a sense that your own visage feels like a borrowed mask, alien, and unfamiliar in any reflection you might glimpse. The person you were with all their hopes, dreams and individual peculiarities seems to have vanished, replaced by the hardened anonymous shell of a survivor. Your past is a luxury you can no longer afford, an emotional burden that might impede your immediate survival. This internal amputation of your former self is perhaps one of the deepest wounds inflicted by the conflict. Out of this shared desolation, however, a new albeit grim collective identity has been forged within the confines of the trench. The constant shared struggle against the enemy, the environment and overwhelming despair has created an unbreakable bond among conscripts. You are no longer just an individual. You are part of a collective of shadows with rifles shuffling between routines, finding a strange, grim sense of belonging in your shared suffering. The trench, a muddy, cold, dangerous hole in the earth, has become your new home, your new village, your new clan. Here, individual identities blur, replaced by a powerful, unspoken brotherhood born of necessity. You move, eat, fight, and survive as one, your lives intertwined in a way no civilian relationship could ever replicate. This is a camaraderie born not of choice, but of shared trauma, a silent pact of survival that binds you tighter than any formal oath. This new collective identity is cemented by the quiet, pervasive acceptance of erasure. The lack of searching for missing conscripts, the unspoken consensus among the living to not speak their names, underscores a grim acceptance of individual disappearance. When a man falls or simply isn't there the next morning, no one looks too hard. No one calls out their name repeatedly in a desperate search. Their identity is absorbed into the collective, whether through death or sheer exhaustion. It's a pragmatic necessity, a coping mechanism for the living, allowing the continuous brutal forward march to proceed unimpeded by individual grief. You understand that your own identity, should you fall, is similarly fluid, similarly expendable, absorbed into the vast churning ocean of the Red Army. This acceptance is a chilling testament to the scale of the conflict and the profound dehumanization it inflicts, a quiet finality that settles over you. Even amid such profound hardship in the desolate landscape of the Eastern Front, the Red Army conscript finds quiet moments of human connection and fleeting peace. These are not grand dramatic instances, but small, almost imperceptible acts that serve as an enduring testament to the human spirit. It might be the shared silence as you huddle together against the biting wind, a silent understanding passing between you and the comrade beside you, a comfort deeper than words. It could be the brief shared smile over a piece of scavenged chocolate, or the quiet strength drawn from helping a stumbling comrade, his hand gripping your arm, a primal bond forged in mutual vulnerability. These are the moments when the shadow with a rifle remembers he is still a man, still capable of connection, still deserving of peace, however fleeting. These aren't the moments that make the history books the grand narratives of strategy or heroism. Instead, they are the quiet human truths of survival, the microscopic victories over despair that allow the Red Army conscript to take one more step to face one more day. They are the small tender shoots of humanity pushing through the frozen ground of the war, brief flickers of light in an overwhelming darkness. They show that even when stripped of everything, comfort, identity, hope, the core human need for connection, for empathy, for a moment of quiet solace remains. This resilience, this quiet strength found in shared humanity, is perhaps the most remarkable story of all from the Eastern Front, a testament to what the human spirit can endure, and still, against all odds, find a way to breathe, to hope, to simply be a quiet, enduring defiance. As you look around, you notice the landscape has been utterly transformed. What were once fields, villages and forests are now scarred, churned earth, dotted with craters and the debris of conflict. The constant digging has turned the ground into a bewildering maze of trenches and foxholes, each one a testament to the desperate struggle for survival. The seasons have cycled, bringing their own brutal challenges, and you have survived them all. The relentless mud, the biting frosts, the blinding snows. You're thinner, your face is harder, and your eyes hold a distant knowing gaze that wasn't there before. The sounds of battle have become a grim soundtrack to your life, interspersed only by the crunch of frost underfoot or the mournful howls of the wind. Your daily routine, once defined by the unpredictable rhythm of the agricultural calendar, is now a relentless cycle of physical demands. Marching, digging, waiting, enduring. These are the new pillars of your existence. Your body, once strong from farm labour, is now honed by a different kind of hardship, a constant state of exhaustion and readiness. Every muscle aches, every joint complains, but you continue driven by an almost primal instinct for survival. The weight of your pack, the unreliable rifle in your hands, the constant friction of ill-fitting boots. These have become extensions of your body, painful yet inseparable companions. You've learned to conserve energy, to move efficiently, to find fleeting moments of rest even in the most uncomfortable positions. This physical metamorphosis is profound, turning a civilian body into a finely tuned, albeit perpetually aching instrument of war, a machine for endurance. The monotonous and scant rations have left an indelible mark on your relationship with food. You no longer eat for pleasure, You eat for survival, every calorie a precious commodity. The taste of kasha and black bread is etched into your memory, a bland, sustaining force that fueled your endurance. You've learned to appreciate even the most meagre offerings to extract every bit of sustenance from dried peas or the bitter soup made from pine needles and engine grease. Water once taken for granted is now a constant concern, its purity always in question, its scarcity a persistent threat. These experiences have reshaped your understanding of basic needs, teaching you a brutal lesson in scarcity and resilience. You know with a deep internal certainty that you will never look at food or clean water the same way again, even if you return home a fundamental shift in perspective. Personal hygiene, a concept almost entirely abandoned, has led to a new kind of uncomfortable intimacy with your own body and the bodies of those around you. The persistent lice infestations are a constant irritating reminder of your lack of control, a small, relentless enemy that shares your uniform. The perpetual dampness of your clothes, the raw skin from constant friction, the unkempt hair and beard, these are the visible markers of your transformation. You've become desensitized to the pervasive smell of unwashed bodies, adapting to a baseline of discomfort that would have been unimaginable in your previous life. This stripping away of personal care forces you to confront the raw animalistic side of survival, where appearances and comfort are utterly irrelevant to the grim business of staying alive, a truth etched into your very being. Your education continues not in any formal sense, but through the crucible of direct experience. You're no longer the naive conscript who had never held a rifle. The outdated Tsar-era weapon has become an extension of your arm, its quirks and failings intimately understood. The battlefield has been your harsh classroom, teaching you how to aim while moving, how to identify the sounds of incoming fire, how to discern enemy movements in the dim light. This brutal, on-the-job training has honed your instincts, sharpened your senses, and instilled in you a primal understanding of combat that no drill could ever replicate. You carry the weight of this education not just in your mind, but in the new hardened gaze of your eyes, in the way your body instinctively tenses at unfamiliar sounds, in the silent knowledge of what it means to truly fight for your life, a grim, undeniable wisdom. The inescapable social hierarchy of the Red Army, once a stark shock, has become an ingrained reality. You exist within a rigid structure where individual identity is secondary to the role of soldier of the workers' and peasants' Red Army. The absolute authority of sergeants and lieutenants is no longer questioned. It is simply the air you breathe. You understand that your agency is entirely subsumed by the demands of the Soviet state, your fate fixed by the impersonal summons that pulled you from your village. The relentless speeches of political officers about the ideological dimensions of our struggle still resonate with a hollow echo, their words detached from the grim reality you face. Yet you have learned to navigate this disconnect to give the outward appearance of compliance, while your internal thoughts remain your own, a small private sanctuary of defiance. The core economy and its critical resource shortages continue to define your daily struggle. The strain of the war economy is acutely felt in every aspect of your life, from the ill-fitting uniforms and outdated weapons to the chronic ammunition deficit. You've witnessed firsthand the logistical failures, the chaos of disrupted supply lines that leave you hungry and ill-equipped. The agrarian base, once your livelihood, now struggles to feed both the civilian population and the military, resulting in the constant reality of extreme hunger. You've participated in the grim scorched earth policy, seeing your own land laid waste, a testament to the brutal choices made in a desperate war. The unofficial barter economy born of necessity remains a vital part of your existence, highlighting the sheer resourcefulness demanded for your survival. A quiet, decentralized network that thrives in the gaps left by official failures, a testament to human will. Nature's relentless fury has proven itself a universal adversary. The environmental extremes of the Eastern Front, from the biting cold that seems to settle deep within your very bones to the relentless rain that turns trenches into cold mud, have been as formidable as any enemy. The unforgiving terrain, with its thick forests, treacherous bogs and rock-hard ground, has continuously challenged your endurance. The pervasive cold has transformed from a discomfort to a systemic threat, forcing you to find desperate measures for warmth. You've witnessed the systemic threats of famine and disease unaddressed and silently claiming comrades. The sensory overload of the battlefield environment, the pervasive smell of damp cloth and unwashed bodies, the chilling sound of frost crunching underfoot, the biting wind that slips between buttons, has etched itself into your very being, a constant visceral reminder of the harsh world you inhabit, a symphony of discomfort. The unyielding power hierarchy is manifested in the arbitrary authority of your superiors stripping you of your rights. Propaganda delivered by detached political officers has been a constant tool of control, their unrealistic orders often met with apathy. You've learned that strategic decisions, sometimes sketched in chalk on a piece of firewood, are fluid and improvised, directly impacting your life. The dehumanization through military utility, where your worth is tied solely to your usefulness, remains a chilling reality. This experience of constant, unquestioning obedience has reshaped your understanding of authority, forcing you to navigate a world where your individual life holds little value against the perceived needs of the state, a stark contrast to the life you knew before the war, a brutal education in power dynamics. The legal and enforcement mechanisms you've experienced are brutal in their simplicity. The immediate superior's will remains law on the front lines, minor transgressions settled swiftly, with a boot to the ribs, bypassing any formal legal process. The chilling presence of NKVD men at train sidings still serves as a constant reminder that discipline is a matter of life and mysterious disappearance, fostering a pervasive fear that enforces compliance without formal charges or trials. While not explicit, the dynamic of collective responsibility continues to bind you to your unit's fate, a tacit system of accountability where comrades implicitly rely on each other. You still have virtually no individual rights, your personal safety and well-being entirely subject to military necessity. The implied brutal discipline and consequences continue to maintain order through fear and severe, often unrecorded repercussions. This raw, direct application of power is a constant grinding pressure that shapes every decision, every movement, every unspoken thought, a silent, unyielding force. The shadow of death and the redefinition of honour continue to hover over you. Death remains an inescapable expectation symbolised by the blood type on your soldier's card, a chilling practical detail suggesting someone already expects to find your unconscious body. The orders that felt like implicit suicidal missions are still issued, fostering a grim acceptance of fate, a willingness to be sacrificed for a larger cause. The anonymity of casualties and their swift erasure continues, a brutal testament to the sheer scale of the horror, where individual lives are absorbed into the collective. Honour for you is still found in sheer endurance, not victory, where "we just didn't lose" becomes a profound form of success. The psychological desensitization to death, a necessary coping mechanism, means you stop reacting to every sound and operate under the grim rule: if it didn't hit you, it wasn't meant for you. A chilling testament to your transformed state, a silent internal hardening. The seeds of discontent born from the root causes of suffering and unrest remain quietly present. The extreme conditions, excessive physical labour, chronic hunger, inadequate equipment, and the relentless impersonal nature of the conflict continue to create fertile ground for despair, fueling quiet dissent and personal breakdowns rather than organised rebellion. Combat, in your experience, remains a chaotic, disorganised reality characterised by desperate engagements, disorganised retreats, and individual acts of bravery or despair rather than coordinated action. Despite the overwhelming odds, you've witnessed brief localized victories such as an anti-tank gun stopping a panzer, providing fleeting moments of hope. The inhumanity of enemy tactics, their methodical, calm and mechanical advance, still amplifies your sense of being overwhelmed. The constant psychological impact of incessant threat combined with the lack of clear plans or communication continues to take its toll, leaving you perpetually on edge, a frayed nerve. Yet a profound shift has occurred with the dawn of the counter-offensive. The sudden news of a broader counter-offensive near Moscow, with Soviet forces pushing back, has indeed marked a significant turning point. It has injected a cautious, nascent sense of hope, transforming the nature of your ongoing struggle, from pure desperate defense to potential advance. This rising murmur of relief has given your suffering a new purpose, a distant goal that allows you to endure. You're no longer just holding the line. You're part of a larger forward movement, a complex machine that is finally beginning to push back. This shift fundamentally alters your perception of the war, making the impossible seem, for the first time, potentially achievable, a glimmer of light on a long dark road. The social fabric around you, though strained, continues to offer glimmers of shared humanity. Communication still primarily navigates the peril of open opinion, relying on whispers, mutters, and shared smirks about political speeches or unrealistic orders. Dark humour remains a crucial coping mechanism, allowing you and your comrades to process absurdities and maintain a semblance of sanity without direct confrontation, reminding you that even in hell, a bleak chuckle can exist. The language of silence and shared understanding has deepened, relying on glances and nods, a collective understanding of hardship and fear, demonstrating a profound bond formed in adversity that transcends words. The brutal environment still suppresses personal expression, leading to a sense of anonymity where names are heavy and soldiers are shadows with rifles. Yet improvised communication in crisis, like using a broken mirror to signal, continues to highlight your collective resourcefulness over formal etiquette, proving that connection will find a way even in the most desolate circumstances, a testament to human ingenuity. Cultural disciplines, small performances of humanity persist. The spontaneous playing of a wheezy accordion sounding like a dying goat, or the soft melancholic singing of a folk song by a comrade, continues to serve as vital cultural anchors, allowing tired men to momentarily feel just people again. Small acts of art and creativity in desperation, like the wiry mechanic drawing birds in the margins of his orders, or carving a chessboard into a plank, still provide a fleeting escape, and a means to assert humanity against the overwhelming odds. The shared rituals of coping, like the communal passing of tobacco or sugar cubes, remain profound social acts, creating temporary bonds and moments of collective respite. And the comfort of grueling routine, the repetitive motions of cleaning a rifle or packing meagre gear, continues to be a soothing discipline, providing a sense of control and normalcy amidst the chaos, a quiet rhythm in a world that makes no sense, a small bastion of order. Spiritual frameworks and superstition still find a way to manifest. Private expressions of faith and despair, whether a prayer or a curse muttered under the breath, continue to be a way of coping with overwhelming circumstances. Pervasive folk beliefs and omen interpretation persist, like a ghost story about a lost cavalry unit singing through the fog, or Victor's personal myth of a star named Yavorskaya, signifying that someone's still alive there. The devastating reality of the war has led to a profound questioning or abandonment of abstract faith, as symbolized by the grim act of burning excess supplies, feeling like you are signaling a god you stopped believing in. Yet the brief encounter with a priest whose solemn nod could be interpreted as a blessing or a farewell still highlights the lingering presence of traditional spiritual figures, offering a quiet moment of reflection on mortality, a fleeting comfort that defies the secular reality of your existence. Love, marriage and family life continue to exert their quiet, enduring pull. Nostalgia for home and family, the mother crying the father's silent gift of a charm, a sister's trembling letter, the smell of boiled potatoes, remains a vital psychological anchor, a connection to a world of warmth and love that feels impossibly distant. But the constant trauma and exhaustion of war cause these cherished memories to fade, creating a painful psychological disconnection from your former lives and loved ones, a silent erasure of the before the war. In the absence of immediate family shared desperation continues to foster surrogate bonds between comrades, small acts of kindness and solidarity hinting at new, temporary family connections. The doll, a powerful symbol of lost innocence, still serves as a poignant reminder of the civilian lives irrevocably impacted by the war, a silent acknowledgement of the universal human cost. The weight of clan identity. A concept once deeply rooted in your village life has transformed into a profound, almost complete suppression of individualism and a pervasive sense of anonymity. From the very moment you were conscripted, your prior identity was summarily stripped away. The uniform became your new skin, the role of soldier, your new name. You entered a world where your actual name, the one whispered by your mother, became a heavy, almost irrelevant thing. Officers overwhelmed by the sheer numbers often forgot names mid-sentence, moving on to the next indistinguishable face. You were no longer Ivan from that village by the river. You were simply a pair of hands, a body to hold a rifle, a statistic. This profound anonymity isn't just a practical consequence of large-scale mobilization. It's a constant low-grade dehumanization designed to make you a more pliable, more expendable unit, in the vast machinery of war, a silent internal sacrifice. Out of this shared desolation, however, a new, albeit grim, collective identity has been forged within the confines of the trench. The constant shared struggle against the enemy, the environment and overwhelming despair has created an unbreakable bond among conscripts. You're no longer just an individual. You're part of a collective of shadows with rifles shuffling between routines, finding a strange, grim sense of belonging in your shared suffering. The trench, a muddy, cold, dangerous hole in the earth, has become your new home, your new village, your new clan. Here individual identities blur, replaced by a powerful, unspoken brotherhood born of necessity. You move, eat, fight, and survive as one, your lives intertwined in a way no civilian relationship could ever replicate. This is a camaraderie born not of choice, but of shared trauma, a silent pact of survival that binds you tighter than any formal oath. This new collective identity is cemented by the quiet, pervasive acceptance of erasure. The lack of searching for missing conscripts, the unspoken consensus among the living to not speak their names, underscores a grim acceptance of individual disappearance. When a man falls, or simply isn't there the next morning, no one looks too hard. No one calls out their name repeatedly in a desperate search. Their identity is absorbed into the collective, whether through death or sheer exhaustion. It's a pragmatic necessity, a coping mechanism for the living, allowing the continuous brutal forward march to proceed unimpeded by individual grief. You understand that your own identity, should you fall, is similarly fluid, similarly expendable, absorbed into the vast churning ocean of the Red Army. This acceptance is a chilling testament to the scale of the conflict, and the profound dehumanization it inflicts, a quiet finality that settles over you. Even amid such profound hardship in the desolate landscape of the Eastern Front, the Red Army conscript finds quiet moments of human connection and fleeting peace. These are not grand dramatic instances, but small, almost imperceptible acts that serve as an enduring testament to the human spirit. It might be the shared silence as you huddle together against the biting wind, a silent understanding passing between you and the comrade beside you, a comfort deeper than words. It could be the brief shared smile over a piece of scavenged chocolate, or the quiet strength drawn from helping a stumbling comrade, his hand gripping your arm, a primal bond forged in mutual vulnerability. These are the moments when the shadow with a rifle remembers he's still a man, still capable of connection, still deserving of peace, however fleeting. These aren't the moments that make the history books, the grand narratives of strategy or heroism. Instead, they are the quiet human truths of survival, the microscopic victories over despair that allow the Red Army conscript to take one more step, to face one more day. They are the small, tender shoots of humanity pushing through the frozen ground of the war-brief flickers of light in an overwhelming darkness. They show that even when stripped of everything, comfort, identity, hope, the core human need for connection, for empathy, for a moment of quiet solace remains. This resilience, this quiet strength found in shared humanity, is perhaps the most remarkable story of all from the Eastern Front, a testament to what the human spirit can endure, and still, against all odds, find a way to breathe, to hope, to simply be a quiet, enduring defiance. As you look around, you notice the landscape has been utterly transformed. What were once fields, villages and forests are now scarred, churned earth, dotted with craters and the debris of conflict. The constant digging has turned the ground into a bewildering maze of trenches and foxholes, each one a testament to the desperate struggle for survival. The seasons have cycled, bringing their own brutal challenges, and you have survived them all. The relentless mud, the biting frosts, the blinding snows. You're thinner, your face is harder, and your eyes hold a distant knowing gaze that wasn't there before. The sounds of battle have become a grim soundtrack to your life, interspersed only by the crunch of frost underfoot or the mournful howls of the wind. Your daily routine, once defined by the unpredictable rhythm of the agricultural calendar, is now a relentless cycle of physical demands. Marching, digging, waiting, enduring. These are the new pillars of your existence. Your body, once strong from farm labour, is now honed by a different kind of hardship, a constant state of exhaustion and readiness. Every muscle aches, every joint complains, but you continue driven by an almost primal instinct for survival. The weight of your pack, the unreliable rifle in your hands, the constant friction of ill-fitting boots, these have become extensions of your body, painful yet inseparable companions. You've learned to conserve energy, to move efficiently, to find fleeting moments of rest, even in the most uncomfortable positions. This physical metamorphosis is profound, turning a civilian body into a finely tuned, albeit perpetually aching instrument of war, a machine for endurance. The monotonous and scant rations have left an indelible mark on your relationship with food. You no longer eat for pleasure, you eat for survival, every calorie a precious commodity. The taste of kasha and black bread is etched into your memory, a bland, sustaining force that fueled your endurance. You've learned to appreciate even the most meagre offerings, to extract every bit of sustenance from dried peas, or the bitter soup made from pine needles and engine grease. Water, once taken for granted, is now a constant concern, its purity always in question, its scarcity a persistent threat. These experiences have reshaped your understanding of basic needs, teaching you a brutal lesson in scarcity and resilience. You know with a deep internal certainty that you will never look at food or clean water the same way again, even if you return home a fundamental shift in perspective. Personal hygiene, a concept almost entirely abandoned, has led to a new kind of uncomfortable intimacy with your own body and the bodies of those around you. The persistent lice infestations are a constant irritating reminder of your lack of control, a small, relentless enemy that shares your uniform. The perpetual dampness of your clothes, the raw skin from constant friction, the unkempt hair and beard, these are the visible markers of your transformation. You've become desensitized to the pervasive smell of unwashed bodies, adapting to a baseline of discomfort that would have been unimaginable in your previous life. This stripping away of personal care forces you to confront the raw animalistic side of survival, where appearances and comfort are utterly irrelevant to the grim business of staying alive, a truth etched into your very being. Your education continues not in any formal sense, but through the crucible of direct experience. You're no longer the naive conscript who had never held a rifle. The outdated Tsar-era weapon has become an extension of your arm, its quirks and failings intimately understood. The battlefield has been your harsh classroom, teaching you how to aim while moving, how to identify the sounds of incoming fire, how to discern enemy movements in the dim light. This brutal on-the-job training has honed your instincts, sharpened your senses, and instilled in you a primal understanding of combat that no drill could ever replicate. You carry the weight of this education not just in your mind, but in the new hardened gaze of your eyes, in the way your body instinctively tenses at unfamiliar sounds, in the silent knowledge of what it means to truly fight for your life, a grim, undeniable wisdom. The inescapable social hierarchy of the Red Army, once a stark shock, has become an ingrained reality. You exist within a rigid structure where individual identity is secondary to the role of soldier of the workers and peasants' Red Army. The absolute authority of sergeants and lieutenants is no longer questioned. It is simply the air you breathe. You understand that your agency is entirely subsumed by the demands of the Soviet state, your fate fixed, by the impersonal summons that pulled you from your village. The relentless speeches of political officers about the ideological dimensions of our struggle still resonate with a hollow echo, their words detached from the grim reality you face. Yet you have learned to navigate this disconnect to give the outward appearance of compliance, while your internal thoughts remain your own, a small private sanctuary of defiance. The core economy and its critical resource shortages continue to define your daily struggle. The strain of the war economy is acutely felt in every aspect of your life, from the ill-fitting uniforms and outdated weapons to the chronic ammunition deficit. You've witnessed firsthand the logistical failures, the chaos of disrupted supply lines that leave you hungry and ill-equipped. The agrarian base, once your livelihood, now struggles to feed both the civilian population and the military, resulting in the constant reality of extreme hunger. You've participated in the grim, scorched earth policy, seeing your own land laid waste, a testament to the brutal choices made in a desperate war. The unofficial barter economy born of necessity remains a vital part of your existence, highlighting the sheer resourcefulness demanded for your survival. A quiet, decentralized network that thrives in the gaps left by official failures, a testament to human will. Nature's relentless fury has proven itself a universal adversary. The environmental extremes of the Eastern Front, from the biting cold that seems to settle deep within your very bones, to the relentless rain that turns trenches into cold mud, have been as formidable as any enemy. The unforgiving terrain, with its thick forests, treacherous bogs and rock-hard ground, has continuously challenged your endurance. The pervasive cold has transformed from a discomfort to a systemic threat, forcing you to find desperate measures for warmth. You've witnessed the systemic threats of famine and disease unaddressed and silently claiming comrades. The sensory overload of the battlefield environment, the pervasive smell of damp cloth and unwashed bodies, the chilling sound of frost crunching underfoot, the biting wind that slips between buttons, has etched itself into your very being, a constant visceral reminder of the harsh world you inhabit, a symphony of discomfort. And so you endure a small part of a vast churning force, your life now inextricably linked to the grand brutal narrative of the war. As the days bleed into weeks and weeks into an eternity, the faint hum of distant artillery becomes almost a lullaby, the cold a familiar companion. You're no longer the young man who left his village. You are a survivor, a shadow, a testament to the brutal realities of 1941, drifting now, as the harsh memories begin to soften into the long, quiet night. As the sounds of the Eastern Front gently recede, allowing the echoes of those brutal days to fade into the quiet, cool air, you can feel the warmth of your own bed, the softness of your pillow. The distant rumble of artillery, the biting wind, the pervasive cold. These are now just whispers in the vast expanse of history confined to the pages of stories never to touch your present comfort. Imagine the profound difference, this simple luxury of clean, dry socks of a meal that is warm and plentiful, not just sustenance. Think of the quiet peace of knowing you are safe, tucked away from the cold, the hunger, the unyielding demands of a war long past. The memories of the conscript struggle, the fading faces and silent farewells, are now safely contained within the historical narrative held gently in your mind. You can let go of the chill that crept into their bones, the gnawing hunger that defined their days, the constant vigilance that shaped their nights. These were their battles, their hardships, faced with a resilience that humbles. But your journey ends here, far from the mud and the snow, in the calm sanctuary of your own space. As your eyelids grow heavy and your thoughts begin to drift, allow the gentle current of sleep to carry you away. The whispers of history will keep you company, a soft murmuring presence, but the hardships are gone. The world outside is quiet now, and you are safe, warm, and utterly at peace. Let your breath deepen, your muscles relax, and your mind finally come to rest.